So, having been on the internet now for almost 20 years, I know that there is nothing more controversial, nothing more likely to excite the ire of the inhabitants of the internet than the recitation of the rosary. I just posting tonight to advertise the fact that we're going to be talking with our guest Keith Berube about saying the rosary. I'm instantly besieged by questions about, well, isn't this and isn't that, and it's vain repetitions, and it's not scriptural, and by the way, isn't it worshiping Mary? Oh no, that I'm paraphrasing, right? That some of that is sort of out there generically. The thing that did happen to me on my post on Gab was I said we were going to talk about Mary and the dragons, and the first thing I got thrown at me was a citation from Revelation. But doesn't Mary fight the dragons? And I'm like, well, yeah, that's why we're going to be talking about her, right? Aren't the dragons bad? How can you say Our Lady of the Dragons? Well, maybe I was taking poetic license. However, given that I seem to magically trigger all of these questions no matter what, figured we needed some help. We needed some help talking about the rosary, and therefore we have invited on Dr. Berube to help us understand why the rosary is our best weapon against the dragons. Welcome to the Mosaic Ark. Okay, so I've got mine. I'm ready. Keith, are you going to teach us?
I'm going to do my best.
So
mine's in the other room.
Go get it.
Don't think ahead.
No.
You want me to go get it?
Didn't you think ahead? Come on, we need to have some practice.
Okay, yeah.
You didn't.
Some notes.
You didn't know what you were getting into, did you? So welcome, Keith. We should probably introduce you properly as Dr. Berube, who is known as Mr. or Professor. How do the students at Queen of Heaven Catholic Academy address you?
Right, doctor or professor.
Okay.
Yeah. Either way.
And that you actually, so I'm just going to sit back and let you explain stuff to us, because you, unlike me, who has a mere lowly PhD in history, you actually have is THD or it's a PhD?
No, it's a PhD.
PhD. But in Mariology, right? So
systematic theology, but my area of expertise is Mariology, though.
Well, this is great. You're also the author of 3 books on devotion to Mary, most particularly, and this is the one that got me into trouble on Gab, suggesting that we were going to be talking about dragons tonight, right? Mary, the Rosary, the relationship, and dragons.
Right.
And because we, broadcast, as it were, from the Dragon Common Room, we had to have you on. So welcome.
Well, thanks. Yeah, I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
So I have, to start with, okay, this is, you're coming in a series of guests who find me in varieties of ways, and then I have to find out from you in person now. Yeah. How did you find me, and why did you wrote to me some time ago
Mhm.
And I mean, I'm assuming you knew my work already a little bit.
Right,
Okay.
yeah. I
Is
found
that
your
okay?
your book. Yeah. I have them on my bookshelf, and Mary and the Art of Prayer, and then the other big one, you know which one I'm talking about. It's got a blue cover. I'll just
That
zoom
one's
in
from
there.
Judgment to Passion. Yeah.
Right, from Judgment to
Yeah.
Passion. Right.
Right. Right.
And the Mariology in there blew me away. I mean, it's
Mm.
such good stuff. So,
Well, since
yeah.
you are actually, I constantly have to default to saying I don't do theology, right? I do history. I do
Right,
what medieval
right. Yeah.
Christians thought about Mary, and that means that I do feel a little challenged in the modern discussions, particularly the theological discussions. I mean,
Right.
about Mary, about Our Lady, because I mean, one, that all sorts of things that you are pointing to in your Rosary book come after my period, as it were, come after the time that I know best, and so it's all a bit of a mystery to me why these things are problematic, right, to people. People clearly get upset, right? But I also realize
Right.
that I mean, you wrote the Rosary book, and I have confessed before, you know, I have rosaries, I love rosaries. I don't really say the Rosary
Oh,
because I say this, right? that
Oh,
that
God,
I
yeah.
that I say the office, and
right.
I looking forward to tonight's discussion because I think there is a difference between saying the hours of the Virgin, which is what I wrote my Mary and the Art of Prayer about,
Mm.
and saying the Rosary, and I think it will help people probably to have some sense of that. But maybe it would just help to for you to talk a bit about how you came to be studying Mary, how you came to be writing about Our Lady, how you come to be teaching at an academy named after her. That's wonderful.
That's yeah, I don't know either. That's some kind of providential mystery. I don't know how that. I mean, I can give you the basics. You want to start from the beginning?
Sure.
the be where so all right. Excuse me. Well, I didn't grow up Catholic. I was baptized validly in like a mainstream Lutheran thing. Um, but we didn't really go there, which was good because I didn't get all this Protestant stuff. So I was kind of a blank slate, really. Um, I had family who was Catholic, and anyway, it was a very sudden thing. My father was Catholic. My father came back to the Catholic Church at some point, and his so my parents got an annulment. This will all make sense as I go through this.
Okay.
And my now stepmother was very Catholic and still is. And she had a tape. At the time, it was new. It was all about Marian apparitions. And it was just me and my dad in Texas at the time.
Mm.
And I was bored, so I just put it in. It sounded interesting and mysterious. And I like mysteries, so I'd put it in there. And so I'm watching this all about Marian apparitions. And all of a sudden, I knew that the Catholic Church was true. I knew it without a doubt that all of this is true. It just was like I don't even know how to describe it. It was just a sudden insight that everything I'm watching in this video is true. And that started about a 2-year journey before actually came into the church. But it was all Marian apparition. So that was the big thing that really, it was clear that she's the one who somehow obtained this grace for me. It was like blinders coming off, and then there's all the truth just before you, and you had no idea.
What
And there
age
it
were
was.
you when that happened?
I was 22. Well, I'm sorry, I was 20 when this happened.
Okay.
20 years old. I came into the church when I was 22. So in 1993, I came into the church, right? Um, and I went to mass a few times, and no one had told me any of this. But when I saw the priest lift up the host and then the chalice, I knew without a doubt. And I didn't hear anything, but I knew that was Jesus Christ, like truly substantially present. There was no doubt in my mind that's who was there. Uh, it was just a grace. No one told me. I just knew, and eventually came into the church, and Mary was the big thing that got me in there. So
Had you prayed the rosary before you had listened to those tapes? Or
um,
you must have seen it, at
I
least.
I knew about my cousins would pray the rosary, but I didn't really know what it was.
Mhm.
Didn't really. I knew who Mary was basically, but um, I may have prayed it with them once or twice, just because we were driving somewhere at time, like sometimes they would pray it, so I would pray along, not really knowing what I was doing. So it was yeah,
Interesting.
yeah. So that's
Yeah.
kind of how it started, really. I mean, in a nutshell. But um, I've always had this. I wrote it in my book at the beginning. This kind of idea that there was this girl watching over me, this young lady watching over me. I don't know where that comes from. I mean, I know now, I think, where it comes from. It's not like I saw anyone or anything, but it was this distinct memory of or sense that this girl was watching over me. It wasn't my
Well,
mother. I didn't have any sisters. So
somebody was praying rosaries for you, obviously.
well, I know my grandparents were. They were very good Catholics, and my cousins, my aunt and uncle. So they must have been. I'm sure they were doing that. They were very happy when it came into the church. I think they were pretty awestruck. I never saw it coming. I don't think anyone saw it coming. So
I'm laughing because that's actually a wonderful thing to hear. Surprises like that are wonderful, aren't they?
Yeah, it's an amazing thing. I have no words for any of this. Yeah, being Catholic is the best thing that can happen to a person. It's just that simple. You've got it all. So
the rosary is a bit. It's a bit like a lasso, isn't it? You know.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the rosary is. I mean, I prayed that. I'm not sure how much I prayed. I was praying it, like, once I came into the church. It was definitely pretty common. Now it's every day, and it has been for a long, long time. So it was kind of like I grew into it, basically. I mean, I got to know more about it as I prayed it and as I studied more. And yeah, she just captured me, basically. Somehow is what happened. It's like kind of how when you meet someone and eventually years later you're best friends. But how did that happen? There's not really a line where you can say at that point. I mean, sometimes you can, but oftentimes it's so slow, you just don't know when exactly it became a really intimate, powerful relationship, whatever that is. You meet your wife, or it's a best friend, and it was like that. And it was only over time that I realized, how can I put it? There's an 80s song that I know it's kind of soppy, but what's the name of it? Oh, it's going to drive me nuts now. I can't think. It's not going to help if I can't think of the title of it.
Hum a few bars.
Yeah, I was thinking, it's like, sing some of it.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the verses now. Basically, it was this girl that he didn't really know, never really noticed her before, and all of a sudden he does notice her. I wish I'm blanking on it. I mean, I know the song really well, and I'm totally blanking on it. But basically, the idea of it is that he knew her for a long time, but all of a sudden his eyes were opened and saw her in a totally different way, and it just got him sideways. It was very much like that. Like, I kind of knew her, I knew about her, I got to know her better, and all of a sudden it just, I don't know what happened exactly. Grace, I guess. It's very hard to put into words because it happened in such a subtle way. And then, so I started working my master's degree. I got a BA in theology and a minor in philosophy. And Mary was definitely very big in all of that, except Franciscan. And then I got my master's from a distance also at Franciscan. We weren't close enough for me to drive back and forth. And I had this experience in 2013, so I just started it in 2012 in the fall. And I don't know how to put this. It was just another strange experience. It was, I remember I was working at the diocese, and I was walking through I'm sorry, I wasn't working at the diocese at that point, but I was working downtown next to the diocese. And it just hit me about hell is what did it. Like, I already knew about that and what hell is about, but it hit me in a very powerful way, how it is an eternal fact. I mean, once you're there, you're not getting out again. And I get, it's one of those things, I just don't know how to say how powerful it was. It was frightening. It was a saddening and frightening experience. Not in the sense that I was going there, but just the fact of what hell is. And
what made you think of it? Did it just come out of
nowhere? No idea. I was just walking back from work to my car, and this just hit me. It just hit me. And in relation to that, I don't remember if it was at the same time or just after. It was very close proximity, either at the same time or a few days later or so. That it was a very distinct thought, almost a voice saying, you need to, because I already consecrated myself to her a long time ago, but it was this voice saying, you need to reconsecrate yourself to her like you've never done before. And I heard that a few times, and I realized that I really had kind of let that slide a bit over the years. I mean, you do something, you make that it's a, it's a promise, really, this consecration. And then you kind of go on with life, and it can happen that you just kind of go off the rails a bit. I don't mean in any drastic way, but just I kind of let it go. But this was a very urgent thing. It was terribly urgent. The sound of this, not in such a way to force me to do anything. It wasn't like that, but it was like, you really need to do this.
Well, that was Saint Teresa of Avila's experience as well. Her conversion experience while she was a nun, right?
Sure.
She had been given this vision that of hell, and I do not want to go there.
Right. Well, yeah, she saw her place in hell, and so for me,
Right.
it was similar. It wasn't my place in hell, but it was just the very fact of hell, and that people go there is what the thing was. And so when Mary came into this, it was really in the context of when people go to Mary and they're really devoted to her, the bottom line is they're not going to end up in hell. It's just that simple. And that's why the devil is really afraid of people becoming devoted to Our Lady and becoming close to her. Once she's got them, I mean, he knows he's going to lose almost certainly. It's
Well,
just that simple.
It's like the meme that Professor Fulton Brown posts a lot in her Telegram chat. It's Hail Mary, full of grace, punch the devil in the face, right?
Right. Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah. It absolutely is. So
I love this, that, part of your book, you, I'm sorry, I have the page number. I think it's like, I forget what page number it is, but it's talking about St. Louis de Montfort, speaking about St. Dominic's exorcism that he performed. And he said, wherein the devil was forced by Mary to declare the following, that basically she put him in a headlock, gave him noogies, and said, "Tell everybody I'm the best. Tell everybody I'm the best."
Right.
And he did.
Yeah. Yeah, kind of like that. Right. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. I mean, she's absolutely powerful. I mean, she's powerful by grace. Of course, God's omnipotent by nature, but Mary is powerful by grace. She can do whatever she wants by grace. And God gave her that role of crushing the devil, and she's the mediatrix of all grace. Whatever you might hear nowadays, that's simply a doctrinal fact. She's the mediatrix of all grace, and the queen of everything. So, it's like back to the thing about dragons. I mean, she's the queen of everything. That includes the dragons are under her sway as well. I mean, they have to do whatever she says. So
Right.
A lot of people don't know this, but at Lourdes, during one of the apparitions, Saint Bernadette heard a racket coming from the river that's by the grotto. It was behind her. And she heard a lot of fighting and arguing. And she said there was one voice that was more violent than all of them and shouted the words, "Get out of here," over and over again. And Saint Bernadette realized it wasn't really so much directed at her as it was to Mary. And she said, Mary turned to them, just gave them one little look, and that was it. There was no more noise. They were gone. That's all she has to
look.
do. Yeah, or a queenly look. I mean,
Yeah.
she just has to look at them, and that's it. But yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, that's a wife look too. So I've seen that. Right. So yeah, that's it. And then it was done. She shows up, she's in charge. It's just that simple. But when people are brought into her, a relationship with her, unless they do something really dumb, they're going to get to heaven. So St. Alphonsus Liguori talks about this. He's a doctor of the church, and he says, look, if you pray the rosary every day, meaning 5 decades, and wear the scapular, and he says, do a little bit more. I think by that he means do some other things for Mary. Give her flowers, say extra prayers, tell people about her, that person will not only be saved, but go straight to heaven. And that's not my opinion. That's St. Alphonsus Liguori. So that's what I'm saying. I mean, once someone's in a relationship with her, she's not going to let them go. So it's a moral certainty that a person is definitely going to get in heaven. It's not an absolute certainty. Someone could do something really dumb, get involved in sin, just not repent, but it's really unlikely. It's a moral certainty they're going to be saved. So,
if people looked at it the way St. Teresa was, you looked at it as you pointed out when you put in the appendix one of her poems. She, in the poem, is beautiful that she wrote, because she's writing to Mary from the perspective of a daughter, because she did consider her mother the moment that her own mother died, that she decided this was going to be her mother. and she's her mother anyway, even whether or not she decided that. But it was more of an assent of the will type of thing. And that's the kind of relationship she had with her, was a daughter to mother and a sister to Christ. And if people could see that and then ask themselves, what would you do to save your kid? Then it might become a little more clear exactly how powerful she is and her intercession is.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if you think of it in those terms, and she loves you. I mean, after God, there's no one who loves you like Mary does. So if you take what you just said and then multiply that exponentially, I mean, it's beyond imagining. Mary wants to get you to heaven, and how powerful she is to do it as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was really within that context that all of this started. And then I shifted my course from just a master's in theology to I made all my coursework about Mary as much as I could. So, and there was a lot of opportunity to do that. So in most of my courses
at Franciscan or
at Franciscan, right?
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, so they don't have a Mariology concentration for an MA like in a formal way, but I just made everything I could, which was most everything, and I had it Mariologically oriented.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a bunch of years, and then my doctoral coursework, that was all Mary as much as I could do it, and then my dissertation, of course, is about her. So it's been a long time, like 13 years of just solid Mariological research, hundreds of books and articles, and I mean, you name it, lots of praying, obviously. And the whole thing seems to be to bring people to her, because like it's about saving souls is really what it comes down to. And having a relationship with her, and that's where people get hung up too, I think. Hence the Rosary book. It's not just about how to pray it, like, it's, decades of Hail Marys. It's not just about that. It's about, why we have all those things and what happens to a person when someone is talking to Mary. What kind of relationship are we dealing with here? And I think people kind of forget that I think a lot of people think, or get the idea subconsciously anyway, that she's far away, or just she's up there in heaven somewhere. And that's really not the case. I mean, she's really close to people. I mean, much closer than we realize. And even physically. And she can do that because she has a glorified body and is outside of space and time. And in ways we don't understand. There's no problem with her being with me and being with you and being with Rachel all at the same time. I mean, apparent to us all at the same time. But in heaven, in eternity, time is kind of like space in a way. So you can go to different spots. So I'm just speculating here. That's really kind of off the rails. But the point is, she's able to do that. So she can be with each of us. But it's much closer than people realize is the thing. So, and the rosary beads themselves speak to that. And there are portraits of that, which they're in the book. Where
yes, you had some really beautiful paintings that you included in the book.
Mm-hmm.
None of them are medieval, so you can imagine. I'm sitting here waiting to
well, they're romantic, aren't they?
Right. Well, and the thing is that, but Keith, what you're describing now, I understand the mode of your book much better now, because the way you're talking about her is very much what you're trying to show people in that book. Why it's about a relationship with her, and I mean what that relationship does in respect to it's not even that much about dragons, right? Because it's by the time you're in love with her and you're meditating on your relationship with her, the dragons aren't really a problem anymore.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, well, I want to say yes and no. I mean, they aren't, but they're a pain in the neck, like as you know.
Okay.
Well, I mean, you start talking about Mary, and you get on
these kinds of dragons, right? It's like there are the dragons of attack, when it's like you mention devotion to Our Lady, and you're instantly assailed with. I mean, what I find hilarious is, of course, everybody thinks that they're coming up with new arguments. You've clearly never heard this one, and you're like, yes, I have. It's basically like, the trigger default that anybody ever comes up with, and well, anyway, they're just so boring, and you can't believe that you're still having to make these arguments, and that it's like the I guess the dragon demons, they can't come up with anything new, so they're just going to repeat the same old criticisms
That
over
is
and over and over
exactly,
again.
that's exactly what I've heard exorcists say about the devil. They said
Yeah.
he's very banal. He just repeats himself over and over
Oh,
again.
yeah.
He says, like there was this particular interview was with Exorcist of New York. I think he's since died. It was a while ago. But he said the devil's very banal, and then raises his eyebrows a little bit, and he says, "Well, don't get me wrong, he's scary to look at, but he can't really do anything. He just does the same thing over and over. It's a one-trick pony."
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he's a pain in the neck, though. I mean, and he is boring. He was boring. He's a pain in the neck. Like, I can give you an example. I'm not sure if this is the best example, but when I had a spot on EWTN for my Mary the Beloved book. I was in their guest house. There's only one other guy there. I'm like, well, this is gonna be great because I'm just by myself at their guest house. My youngest daughter was only 3 at the time, so she was still waking up a lot at night. And I'm like, I'm gonna get a good night's sleep. This is gonna be really nice. It's been a long time. So I get to bed. I'm reading and I'm like, this is good. So I fall asleep, and then something just wakes me up, like someone flipped a switch, and I'm just in this dark room, and I could feel distinctly there was a presence there. And I'm like, I know what this is going to be. I'm going to look at my watch, and it's going to be 3 a.m. I just know it. And it was like 3:02 a.m. on the dot.
Yeah.
And it was definitely a presence there that was displeased. And so, just made the sign of the cross and just get back to sleep as best I can. But I'm in a house pretty much by myself. There's one other guy, but he was sleeping. And
but you're in the
it's disconcerting.
EWTN house. How is it that I mean, that sounds rather
he can get anywhere.
well, but I mean, it's like coming after the people that are about to go on to talk about their faith.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
That's not
I don't know I mean, I don't know how much it happens, but I do know that when I've done Mary things that have some kind of import that are like beyond the normal thing, even sometimes just teaching classes, if it's something big, or I'll find out later there was some student that was having some kind of problem or needed some advice. And I'm like, oh, that's why all these things were going wrong. And it's just like inexplicable otherwise. So it's nothing to worry. Like there's two ways to look at the demons. One is you're not close to Mary. And so you're kind of in a spot because you really want them crushed out of your life in a way that they're able to wreck you, basically. And then you have, when you have a solid devotion relationship with Mary, they're still going to come at you, but it's pretty easy to take care of in those situations too. So there's 2 different levels, really. One of them is the one you want to have. You, in a way, it's a backhanded compliment. If they're going after you, you're doing something right. But if they get you into a life of sin, that's not where you want to be. That's the devil's got you as a slave, and that's where you need her to come in and crush that right out of your life. And that's what you do with me and with a lot of my students too. They'll mention that class just turned them around. This Mariology course. I mean, not because of me, but because Our Lady comes in and they get interested and have a relationship and things radically change. So.
Yeah, it's amazing how attractive a person she is to so many diverse types of people. People who are like marginally Catholic or Christian, Muslim. They won't say anything bad about her. They frequently have very good things to say about her. And I'm thinking about people I know personally too, who haven't darkened the door in a church more than once a year in a long time. But they really love Mary, right? I think they instinctually know she's the good mother.
Yeah, I think there is an instinct for that. Exactly, yeah.
But that's interesting, Kim, because the opposite is also true. It's like people who think of themselves as very strongly Christian, but mention Mary as anything other than a doormat. And
that's awful, isn't it?
Yeah,
and it's because it's reflexively anti-Catholic. It's more to do with that, I think, than Mary. It's like, oh, that's a Catholic thing, and that's very cultural. That's very politically cultural, especially in the English-speaking world.
Yeah,
over the past 400 or 500 years.
Yeah, it's still kind of inexplicable, I think, in a way, though, because I mean, even if you're a Protestant, I mean, the fact is, if I go and insult their mom, they're going to be really upset about that, probably. But they're upsetting God's mother. Even if you take everything out of it and say she were just an ordinary woman, which she's not. It drives me nuts, because she's not ordinary, for crying out. She's immaculate. She's full of grace. She's the mother of God. What kind of woman do you have to be the mother of God? Let's think about that.
Yeah,
I know
they-
that
they-
that's just the first step. It's like, do you realize what
Right.
you're
Yeah,
saying
that's
about her
number
son?
one. But
no,
If
you
you're-
don't.
right,
Right.
right.
It doesn't pass scrutiny once you put it. And yeah, I do know people like that too, and I've spoken to them. And
Right.
and I've actually seen somebody do this and say, well, she's just a vessel. I'm like, well, that's pretty disgusting. That's calling God a user.
Yeah. I mean, if you said that about their mom, they'd be really offended.
Exactly.
It's like, but
And I want to point out that Protestants still name their daughters Mary, and it's not Martha and Mary. They're naming them Christ's mother.
that's true. That's true. Yeah, I tell my students this one joke. I can't remember where I heard it. Where but I mean, it has a lot of truth to it. Where there's a Protestant who is really talking badly about Mary to his Catholic friend, and his Catholic friend says, "I really hope I die before you do." And his Protestant friend says, "Why would you say that?" And the Catholic says, "Because I don't want to be in line behind you to watch you explain to Jesus why you hate his mom." I don't want
I don't know. I'm sure you don't want to watch.
Yeah, something to
You
just don't want to
explain
see.
that.
Yeah, and good luck with that one. But even if you took her as just an ordinary level, supposing you just said, well, she's an ordinary woman, that's still his mother. Like, how do you think that's going to go? You think Jesus stops loving his mother? Are you going to stop loving your mother? I mean, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
People just don't think it through. And
Well, they're repeating a lot of what their pastors have said too, and I know that because they'll repeat the same things over and over again, which means they're getting it from a single source.
true. Yeah, and yeah.
Well,
That's
okay,
true.
so this is, I'd say I contextually, I grew up Presbyterian, and my favorite thing, my poor mom, when I'm still trying to, show her Our Lady, which is challenging because she's, goes to church and reads the scriptures regularly, and then tells me that, it's very hard for her because she didn't grow up with this stuff. And I'm like, Mom,
Yeah.
neither did I. So and Keith, from my books, right? My approach through all of this was to have to go through the scriptures to get to Mary. So I'm very interested in that you came to her through the movies, the video that you watched of the apparitions, because I was also taken with the fact that in your book, you talk about the apparitions. You have a whole series of apparitions that, are associated with the Rosary. But of course, those are all, from my perspective, they're modern. So it's this and that's why I know that's why I end up with the hours of Our Lady are the thing that really holds my attention, and I've said them every day for some 5 years now or so. But if you're saying the hours of Our Lady, you're really saying Psalms and focusing through the Psalms in her office on, her role, her relationship with the Creator, and her, as I said in Mary in the Art of Prayer, the way that she frames him and makes him visible and things like that. What you've described in your book, though, is a very different sense of what, a relationship with Mary is. It's immensely personal from the outset, as you're talking about her, and that it felt, when I say modern, I mean in very specific ways of the media. Kim and I have been doing this for a long time, right? It's like, it's a Marshall McLuhan kind of problem of the medium that the message comes to us through. And Mary has this kind of she's a mediatrix. She's clearly somehow mediating. But the medium that Mary came to you through was that video. And sort of touched
Initially.
but touched you through that, story of her apparitions and things like that. That the apparitions, I've been to Fatima by way of being invited to give a talk in Portugal, and my host took me to Fatima, so I've sort of taken there accidentally rather than I purposefully made the trip to go to Fatima. It was like Mary wanted me to come to. I still don't have a strong sense of the sort of not point of the apparitions, but in some sense the purpose of the apparitions, because for me, she comes to me through the prayers of the liturgy and the scriptures, and particularly through the Song of Songs and the Psalms and the wisdom books, and I know her that way. I don't know her in the way that you're describing.
Right. Okay. Yeah, it's really interesting. So the video, that was the initial thing. But what happened is, especially as I started getting to this more, like once 2013 came along, then I was really getting to St. Alfonso Liguori, for example, who uses a lot of scripture. And as I'm reading that, it was precisely the scriptures, like the Song of Songs and all the wisdom books of Solomon, really Old Testament stuff that really put everything together. That's really when the personal stuff started to happen, actually. Was not through the videos or apparitions. It was actually more through these Old Testament Solomonic books is what was doing. That's why I love your book so much, is because they have so much of that in them.
It's basically what they are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, so I'm reading all this in 2013, and I'm thinking this is all about Mary, and she's intensely personal. When you read that in the Old Testament, like this is what the saints always have taught for a very long time, is that in the church, that these passages are about Our Lady. And then it was like that fall, I think 2013 or 2014. No, it was 2014. I had a class with Dr. John Bergsma on wisdom literature. And
I've heard him talk. I've read his book I've read his book on John, and I've read his book on his conversion. Yeah, he's a
okay.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, genius guy, great guy, one of my favorite professors. And it was all the wisdom literature. And he was bringing up a lot of the points I was noticing, and I was just blown away by what he was teaching. And it was very much what you've written about and what I'm talking about here. Well, how Mary comes to us in these Old Testament passages, that when you look at them, they are intensely personal. I mean, it's pretty astonishing. I mean, how intimate some of these things are, really, with how she wants to interact with us. And so apparitions, there are two things going on there that I mentioned. One of them is that she's coming to us in apparitions, which is just an actual appearance. It's not like a ghost. I mean, she has her body back, so she's bodily present at these apparitions. But they're because the world is falling off a cliff. I mean, they've approved apparitions have increased like insanely since 1830 with St. Catherine Labouré. They've gone way up.
Well, that's the thing, that, as I said, they're a modern phenomenon. And so one thing I've suggested is that it's Mary is coming to us. I mean, so she's the frame for the incarnation, and so the word comes to us through her, like literally is in the incarnation. But the media that she uses to communicate with her children, us, fit the time, right? So that the 19th century apparitions are sort of electric, which fits.
Yes.
Right. That she
Fatima.
She's like like all of the electric media that we are now in. Right. Here we are in the light in the internet. So she's clearly part of, this kind of mediation too. That
Good point. Yeah.
That the mode fits with the technology of the time, which you could say, well, then that's just like, I mean, this is the skeptics will say, well, then, it's just our continuing making her up, right? Which is the baseline problem.
Yeah.
This
Right.
this is not a real relationship that we're in. It's a projection, Feuerbachian projection of our own, looking for our relationship with our own species, kind of thing. But so that the apparitions of themselves, they're definitely a modern phenomenon, in the mode that you have a vision of her and have conversation with her. The medieval devotions visions they're not group visions that people have. They tend to be with the nuns in the liturgy in a sort of prayer context. It's a very different.
Fatima is very unusual in that there were so many thousands of people that were witness to it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like mass media version.
And it was, and there were lots of photographers there, right, for newspapers, and most of them were communist. And the biggest message about Fatima is, you guys better start praying, because the errors, the errors of Russia are going to spread if you don't, right? And this is about the time the Russian Revolution is happening. And there was a whole lot of people that saw that, but you're right. Before that, it was very personal. It was one person, and nobody else saw anything like that. But this was really unique, incredibly unique, happening. I mean, of course, the first apparition was the 1st century, Our Lady of the Pillar in Spain. Yeah,
right. Mary was still alive. That was actually a bilocation apparition.
Right.
But then you've got, I mean, this is actually just into the modern age, but Our Lady of Guadalupe was 1531, so it was just after the medieval period. But I mean, that's talking about Technicolor. I mean, the tilma is That's like
Yeah,
that
and
color right there. I mean,
yeah,
that's
that
astonishing. So
it is astonishing. That is a fun one because it was personal for Juan Diego, but it was also personal for his bishop
yeah,
because
and
there were
everyone else had seen it.
right,
Yeah,
because there were Castilian roses, right, where he was
exactly.
from.
Which were not in Mexico and couldn't grow in the winter
Right.
anyway, and they weren't even growing there yet. They were
So,
only in Spain.
yeah,
So
this is her
uh,
calling card. Hello, yes,
yeah,
it's me.
yeah, and then so that's when you start having that, right, that intimate personal thing, because just what she tells Juan Diego, like, you're in my arms, you know, is there anything else you need? I'm taking care of you. It's very personal when you get
Yes.
to that point. But before that, that's the thing. Until Our Lady of Guadalupe, there were so few apparitions. I mean, the Bishop Zumarraga wasn't quite sure what to do with it at first. Like, is this real or is this not real? Because there had been so few apparitions to that point.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in his lifetime, there just wasn't anything. In our
Yeah.
lifetime, they're happening. What? I mean, you've got, you know,
Well,
it's like every few decades. You've got,
yeah, people are claiming it, right?
well, no, I'm talking about approved apparitions. I'm just talking about
Okay.
approved apparitions. And there's a
There's
lot
maps
of them.
out there on the internet. There are actually quite a few. Yeah. They're more in your book than I had been aware of, for sure. So that's interesting.
I think that tells us how dire the times are. I mean, so there's supposed to be an age of Mary at the end, and there's no doubt that we're in that. And the general idea is that it started in 1830 with St. Catherine Labouré and the Miraculous Medal, because it's really at that point. Then you've got Lourdes, you've got La Salette, Knock Ireland, Fatima, and I know I'm missing some here. Borang, Belgium, Vanneau, Belgium, which happened just after it. And then so on and so forth. Cabejo, Coapa, Nicaragua. These are all the approved apparitions I'm talking about here. And then there's a bunch of others as well. And so it just skyrockets. But it does seem to be what the saints were saying, that there would be this Marian time at the end. And you can see why. I mean, things are so bad out there. All you have to do is just walk out your front door and you can see it's pretty much like hell on earth right now, to be honest. I mean, it is. And if you don't have Mary,
I'm going to push back on this because I have to, because I do, right? You know, you read From Judgment to Passion. You know what the temptation is in this, that we always want to know that we're coming at the end of the story.
I know
the year 1000,
but I have reason
the year
for
2000. Oh, everybody does, and I'm with Augustine. I'm with our Lord saying, "Stop it! You cannot know the time. Even only the Father knows the time."
Yeah. If you're
that's always Return of the Sun, though, not the times. I think the times are pretty obvious.
No,
it's like
I'm just gonna stick in. Yes, exactly. Are we certain this is worse than the Black Death?
Or the year 1000, right?
Right. I mean, no, I mean it's we're alive now, and so the anxiety is we can't see the future, and therefore, and therefore,
the spiritual reality though is far worse than I think most people realize. In fact, I'm sure it is.
What, during the French Revolution? It was
the spiritual reality is we're saved. I mean,
we're not. No, you're not saved until you're in heaven. Right now, you have the possibility of being saved.
We're redeemed. We're redeemed, and we're redeemed.
So the thing is that see, now I'm arguing with Catholics. This is, you know what happened it's like we had this like lockdown drag out fight between the Catholics and the converts a few months ago, and I'm like, I'll just be Presbyterian, thank you very much, because you Catholics don't make any sense to me, because there are come on, I read the scriptures, right, a lot. I know, but I'm also a historian, and I know what the temptation is constantly. It's always, always, always the temptation to believe that you're in the most significant time ever in history. And that is, very, very dangerous. That is very dangerous, because it leads people to claim that they can know the future. And
it's led some people to do some, terrible self-harm, some cults over the past, decades. They weren't Christians, but it's the same spirit of, this is the end.
But no, just Keith, just to go back to what I said in chapter 2 in From Judgment to Passion, where there's this desire Frank Kermode's sense of an ending that he's pointing to, that there's this consolation of knowing the conclusion to the story. And yesterday I was talking to my students about Tolkien, because we're starting the Tolkien course, and
Mm.
what, that we're talking about his idea of fairy stories and how fairy. I mean, I think fairy is actually for him basically the place of the liturgy. Fairy stories are about the mystery of being in
Yeah,
the
right.
liturgical. But then there's, they have this consolation, so it's a happy ending. So what is the happy ending? Well, it's not, absence of sorrow, as you reminded me today. It's like today it's a feast of Our Lady of Sorrows, right?
Right.
That it's not the absence of sorrow. I think, the consolation is, and this is in the Lord of the Rings, the moment of that, the tears just burst forth is when they're in the field of Carmallen and the minstrel begins to sing the story that they're in. And Sam bursts into tears because all my wishes have come true. And like, why do you cry in that moment? It's, the turn is, I know the story I'm in. I know what it means. I know that there's a reality in this story that we're participating in. And most of the time when people are wanting, I mean, they sit around on the internet constantly, predicting that, the world's going to blow up tomorrow because we are definitely in World War III now, and President Trump is going to make us all die. People, that's the temptation. They want to know that it's like, they don't care that they're projecting the destruction of our earth. They're more satisfied with themselves that they know that it's the bad times, the end times,
Right.
but the thing is, it's because it's the end. They know the end. That's more important to them that they're praying for praying for peace.
Right. I mean, yeah. I mean, these are speculations, and I think they're well-educated speculations that I've got, but they're speculations. But the thing is, it doesn't even. And we know that eventually Jesus returns. None of this, even if you're going to return tomorrow, doesn't change what we should do today.
Right.
Which
Right.
comes back to the whole fact of, of being close to Our Lady, in order to be in a safe spot, basically, so she can, take care of you and protect you and get you to heaven. And that's the same thing. It doesn't matter what the age is, really. I mean, so that's what I tell my students too. It's like even if he's going to return next week, you shouldn't even lose any sleep over it. You just do what you should do. I mean, which is try to be saintly, try to be a saint, live a good life, do what God wants you to do, which is whatever your state in life is, basically. And so nothing really changes in that fact. And you're right. We don't know for sure anything, the time frame here.
Right. Which is why God didn't say, oh, by the way, it's going to be on this date. So,
yeah, we just don't know when he's returning. I mean, we don't know that. And it doesn't change what, even if we did know, it doesn't change what we should do today.
Well, yeah, human nature being what it is, most of us would do whatever we want and then just cram for the final, right?
Right. Yeah, it would be a really bad idea to tell everyone when it's going to end. But then people would, they would think, oh, I've got all this time, I can just be really bad and then just be really good at the end. And
absolutely,
that's not what you want either.
Right. Yes. So, no. Exactly. So we've got Robert Montgomery making a lot of comments, and now I'm curious. So it's saying the word always was, but his flesh came through her. So fair enough.
Sure.
When the bishop is hesitant, you might want to hesitate too. Delusion. I think that was when we were talking about the apparitions. But now he says, I haven't heard an actual argument yet. Robert, you need to tell us what the actual argument is that you're waiting to hear, because I'm not. He does say the end means less time for repentance, which I think we've solved that, but quicker than we solved what Mary is.
Well, I mean, Christ talked about that himself, though, didn't he?
Yes.
Death comes as a thief in the night. You have to always be ready because your time is really short.
Yeah.
Never mind the earth.
Right. Like the wise virgins versus the waiting for the bridegroom, right? We need to be ready.
Ones, yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
And the thing is, you don't know when it's going to be, because you could get. I have a student who he got hit by a car a few years ago. I'm sorry, he was on a motorcycle, and he was probably 22 or something.
Mm-hmm.
And he took my Mariology course and did really well, actually, too. So I was kind of consoled. But he had no idea that was coming. Obviously, He was only like 20-something, young guy, unexpectedly died. I mean, that's the thing. You don't know when your end is coming.
Exactly.
It really has. It's really, the end of the world is really beside the point. You have to be. Your end is really the thing here.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's why. Yeah, that's the thing you need to be focusing on and that's where Mary comes in. I mean, and it makes sense too, because once you're baptized, you become a member of Christ. You got Jesus, who's the head, and we're members of his body. So, but it's one Christ. So Mary is the biological mother of God, the spiritual mother for his body. But so the mother of the whole Christ, though, Jesus the head and us the body. So it doesn't make any sense to want to have any kind of distance at all from Mary. You'd have to say, well, and what about Jesus, right? What did he do? What was his situation? I mean, that's what we should be looking at. Like, how close should you be to Mary? I mean, Jesus was as close as you can get, and St. Joseph next. I mean, those are the two examples to follow. That's who the saints were.
I've been wanting to ask you to put it this way. So what kind of arguments are you most aware of that people are using against the devotion to Mary?
That's a good question.
Which ones do you find yourself? So just say, my scholarship started in the 80s, and what I was mainly having to deal with was the feminist theologians who were arguing that Mary was raped. And it's like, it was
that's disgusting.
Mary. Well, I say Mary. People don't believe me when I say it's like a peer review recently. Someone was saying nobody says this. I'm like, well, actually, they did a lot in the 80s.
And got a bit wild back then.
Well, and I bring this up too because Keith, you have in your book some meditations on women's relationship with her, men's relationship with her, and such. And people like, back in the day, Marina Warner or Mary Daly were saying, she's bad for women. Carrie Gress has been writing obviously a number of books now. It's saying, no, that's nonsense. But that their arguments were of a sort of, she is, well, I'm just trying to say the kinds of arguments that I was aware of and I was trying to deal with. And so my study was trying to figure out, well, that doesn't make any sense. How did medieval Christians see her? How did they understand her? And how do you get to the point where you can see her as the temple and the throne and the gateway and all of the liturgical imagery that we have of her? She's wisdom, but she's also this very liturgical space for our encounter with Christ, that she is the image of the temple for us because he becomes incarnate through her. You're coming to this question later than I was, and so it seems to me you're and through your Lutheran I had no Mary in my growing up, as my mother likes to remind me when I try and explain to her why I care. But your absence of Mary was a different sort of absence from mine, and your early encounters with her come through a different path. So I'm curious to hear about which dragons have you been fighting specifically to try to help us see her?
Oh,
what makes it hard for people
exactly
to hear you?
I mean, what I'm trying to make sure I understand your question here. Like, in what sense do you mean what dragons I've been fighting? Do you mean
you got any pushback?
The pushback you get. The pushback I get is one from the Presbyterian absence of devotion to Mary. So my answer is, look, she's in Scripture, right? You care about Scripture. I can show you in Scripture.
Right.
I had to very deliberately go through how the exegesis shows us that devotion to her fits with, and therefore, I'm a still true Calvinist in the sense that was the thing I cared most about to make sure I understood.
Calvin loved Mary too.
Calvin loved, but he gave his legacy to the Presbyterians was you've got to read Scripture, and you do it in all the languages, and so it's like I recognize that in retrospect as I was very interested in the media problem with what kind of experience people have with the Scriptures and the liturgy and how they come to her through story and things like that. But it was a very Presbyterian sort of path that I had to take to come to the understanding of her significance for Christianity, which is, it's like, now I'll just say, it's like without Mary, you just don't, you can't see Christ, because literally she makes him visible, as Anselm says.
Yes.
She does. She made to the world, to her, the Creator visible, whom the world had not seen. That's like
right.
He looks like her,
right?
Because he took his flesh from her.
Yeah, exactly. And she keeps doing that too. So for battles, my students are all like from really solid Catholic families. So when stuff comes up, it's rare. And it's usually, so I usually look for arguments that are general things that they might hear out there from people it's, maybe it's just for me, this is, pretty easy stuff to tackle. And it just comes up in classes and I kind of inoculate them. But one of the big things that comes up, I mean, so they're ready for these things. I'm like, you're going to get
You're going to get it. No, it's like, that's what I said in the opening. It's like, if you talk about Mary on the internet, you get more flack than on anything. Anything.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Which should tell you how much the Prince of the Air is in control of the internet. But
right. Oh, yeah. Yeah. So there are a few things that we'll go over that people get confused about. You'll even hear this stuff in homilies. One of the ones that's a real pet peeve of mine is, so to speak, is that Mary was an unwed mother, and she was not an unwed mother.
no.
Does anyone honestly think that God the Father is going to have his own son born to an unwed mother? It's just ridiculous and honestly blasphemous to even think that. And they don't even know what they're talking about. So John Paul II talked about it. There's some really good theologians who talk about this. I'm trying to remember it. It's either Brant Petrie or I think it's Brant Petrie, I think. There's another one. I can't think of his name right now. But this has already been tackled. So the way Jewish marriage worked, the first step, they called it betrothal. And people nowadays think, oh, it's an engagement. It's not like a modern equivalent at all. The first step was actually the wedding. That was the marriage, was the betrothal. That's when they exchanged consent. If you wanted to get rid of the girl, you'd have to have a divorce, because there was a marriage. You couldn't just, it was there. It was done. What they called the wedding was when the husband and wife would start living together, and that could be several months to a year when they would do that. That was the wedding. All right. So when the Annunciation happens, that happens before they come together at what they call the wedding. But that was actually considered legit and totally illicit by the Jews. It wasn't super common, but it wasn't also that uncommon that the husband and wife would actually consummate the marriage before they came to live together. And they could do that because they were already married.
And I imagine weddings back then they're like they are today in the Middle East, that they're very large affairs that go on for days, and people travel for many miles to get there.
Right. Yeah. So the wedding at Cana that happened. They were already married. The wedding celebrates them coming to live together.
Right.
That's what that was about.
So you're not going to make the couple wait until, great uncle so and so can travel 100 miles by donkey to get there.
No, probably not. Not. So that's how that worked. And you have a number of other just stuff that'll come up, like, well, Scripture says he has brothers and sisters, and that's just not the case. He didn't have brothers and sisters. Mary is perpetually a virgin. What they were talking about are people who are, cousins. It could even be people who live in the same town to be considered family as well. So these brothers and sisters, they weren't biological whatsoever.
No, it wasn't written. The Bible wasn't written in the King's English. So
what happens is that people take modern stuff. It's all anachronistic. They take modern things and put it on things.
Those are questions that were asked in antiquity too. So Robert Montgomery is saying marriage has to be consummated. We can go to we can do this argument.
That's a Protestant invention, but
okay, yes. Robert, we want you to say, are you Protestant? He says, by an argument, I mean more than a standpoint, subjective experience. But I'm not sure about arguing about what, right? Robert, you need to explain better in the chat.
Marriage exists before the consummation. Otherwise, you couldn't consummate the marriage. It would be
exactly what are you consummating.
The question about the Jesus's brothers is Jerome deals with that and against Jovinian. So these are not new questions. They're questions that people had in antiquity.
They still come up.
Right, but you're saying it's this is what I was saying. It's like the I gotcha questions, like, well, aha. You clearly have never read Scripture, because I read this and now I know that you haven't paid attention to what it says in Mark, right? And you're like, no, I have read that, and yes, we've talked about that, and this is not news. Some of the harder. Well, there's been a lot of psychologizing of Christianity in modernity as well, and you're not wrestling with that level of question. I mean, not just that she was not married or sorry, I've lost my thread.
I have a question to tack onto the last one, though. It's a little bit. So when I asked about pushback earlier, do you ever get any pushback on promoting the rosary as a primary prayer?
Let me think. It's rare. It's rare. I did have one student, and again, mostly it's students that I'm talking to, and most of them are from solid Catholic. But there was this one where what did she say? We're talking about the rosary, and oh, that's right. I don't remember how it came up in class. I was talking about how things that are spectacle sell really well. But if you write a book about the rosary, that doesn't, even if you have dragons in the title, it doesn't sell, super well, right?
Nice
I mean, people are like, okay, it's the rosary. But if it's about demons and exorcism, and I agree, it can be fascinating stuff. But if it's anything spectacle related, people are all over it. And so she said, I said, but the rosary is much more fascinating, actually. And she disagreed with that and said, no, it's not. Basically, all the spectacle stuff like demons, all that's far. I'm like, yeah, that's because you don't really know what you're talking about. And so I tried to explain it to her for 10 minutes, like why the rosary is far more fascinating. But then you have to explain what the rosary is. Like, that's what the book does. What's going on, the relationship dynamic. That this is not just talking to the air. I mean, the sounds of your voice really do go to her ears physically. I mean, she's listening to you. It's a conversation. It's a two-way thing. This isn't just imagination or something.
It would be really easier to explain to two generations ago and say it's like a telephone cord, right? Because nobody knows what that is anymore. Like it's like talking about a direct line. But that is really interesting. That the kids are interested in spectacle. People are always interested in spectacle. I think more so now because of social media and iPhones, and you've got a computer and a television in your pocket 24 hours a day. You're looking at something is grabbing your eyeballs, it's grabbing your attention, and it better be interesting. It better be like entertaining, right? So how do you teach them that there's a difference between communication with God and meditative prayer and being entertained, or even entertaining yourself? And how do you get them to tell the difference?
Yeah, well, that's a really good question. I think it basically has to be, I mean, I can explain it as much as I can, but it comes down to experience as well, because if you don't do that, it's like describing, how can I say this? Supposing you try to describe to someone, I'm trying to think of a relationship example. If you try to describe this is coming from a guy point of view, to a young guy who's never, say, sat with a girl who really liked him and he really likes her. He's never had this experience. And you try to explain, well, what it's like. That only goes so far. I mean, it's just words. But when that guy sees an actual girl who likes him and there's this connection, you can't really put that into words. It just blows you away, right? And I'm sure, it happens for girls too. I'm just coming from my guy point of view, obviously. And that just blows you away. But you can't really, it's like that with prayer too. And the saints talk about that. You don't really know until you start doing it. And, it starts, you have levels. You have vocal prayer, then meditative prayer, and then it goes up from there, where it becomes much more like what they call effective prayer. So it's much more like an intimate relationship thing. The way I put it is kind of like, sitting with a girl like on a bench in the park. I mean, you're right there next to each other. You don't really have to say anything. Like, it's sometimes the looks or just being there says a lot more than you could possibly say with words. And prayer is very much like that, but you have to experience it. You can only, St. Teresa of Avila said that too. She's like, there's only so much I can say. I mean, you really have to get to that point.
No, that's good. It's an experience, right? And I love the poem you included, Gerard Manley Hopkins, because he's expressing just what you did right here. It's interesting. You were thinking of a song from the 80s you couldn't remember. And as I'm reading this Poems of Mary by Gerard Manley Hopkins, this one's called The Blessed Virgin Compared to the Air We Breathe. And I went, oh, it's the Hollies song from 1974. Right? It said, sometimes all I need is the air that I breathe and to love you. And he talked about that in this poem. And I went, I didn't have time to look it up, but I wonder if they were inspired by one of his poems. I don't know when they wrote that.
I remember the song now, by the way. It's The Search Is Over. That's the 1980s song.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? Yeah. My experience was very much like that. Again, I know it sounds kind of sappy, but that's kind of what it was like. Sudden recognition, like, wait a minute, I've heard of you, and I knew about you, but this is different. This is an experience.
Exactly, and that's Hopkins' poem. It's like it's written from if Teresa of Lisieux's poem was written from the perspective of a daughter and a sister. right? Who just loves her
Right.
mother and loves being a part of a family. And
Right.
Hopkins' poem is written from the perspective of the knight that will die 1,000 times. Was what does the '90s song say? Right? I walk 1,000 miles to fall down
Oh,
at
yeah.
your door. That's
Right,
him.
right.
What he's doing
Yeah.
here for Mary, right?
Yeah.
It's a bit like the Song of Songs, if you were going to
Yeah.
reinterpret it, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, the Song of Songs has a lot of stuff. That's really intimate too, and that does. I mean, you've got different levels there. It's mainly Jesus and Mary, but you've also got the individual soul and Mary as well. In another,
Yeah.
if you look at it another way, and that really captures this kind of intimacy that you've got there. But this is a mystical, spiritual thing. Obviously, it's not a same thing with Christ. I mean, that's what Solomon is getting at. That's the heart of it.
Right.
So yeah, so those things really capture what's really going on with this relationship with Our Lady. You really need to look at the wisdom literature of Solomon, and you can really start. I mean, I have that in the book. I forgot I had put it in there till today. I was going through it, and I have a whole section of like how one can talk to Mary, like you see this in the Old Testament, and then how Mary is talking to someone using words from the Old Testament. And you can see when you put that together that this is an amazingly personal thing. And this happened at, this was an apparition that was approved by the Coptics, and also the Catholic Church put something out about it too. I don't know if they actually blatantly said or directly said it's approved, but it was Zaytun, Egypt.
Yes.
And that's a fascinating one. I'm sure that's a legit thing. But what people said was, even though there were thousands of people there sometimes, and they could see this young lady on the roof of the church, they said they felt that their experience was she was looking just at them. It was just this one-on-one thing.
That's
and
cool.
because her love for each soul is so intense and so unique that they felt like they were alone with her. It was just her and them, her and this person, and each person felt like that. It wasn't like she just looked at a crowd. It was like looking at you, like personally. And it's unique to everyone too, which is also a fascinating thing. So there's a lot we can get into there too. How some interesting theology of how Our Lady, even you're going to get a lot of feedback on this one. How even from her conception, she had the use of reason, which Jesus did as well, because he's God, obviously. But that Mary did too, and was shown. She knew everyone by name, but not everything about their lives. But she knew everyone by name, and so when she came to the Annunciation, and she gave her yes to God, when she said that knowing, who you are, who Rachel is, who I am, each of us distinctly. And so when she said yes, it was not just a yes, like, yeah, in general, I love everyone. It was a yes, I love each one of these people, and I want them to be saved.
I've never heard that before.
Yeah, and then at the cross.
No, none. All of this is, these are not medieval versions of the mystery.
Yeah, I don't recall that.
I'm not sure how far back that goes, but this is from really good theologians like Father Stefano Manelli. Some really good stuff out there.
This is I'm curious now about your own work in Mariology. What theological questions you've been working on?
Yeah, one of them is one of the big ones, and I have this in one academic article I put out where I mentioned it, and it's peer reviewed, and I wasn't sure. I was wondering if they're going to say something about that and be like, you maybe shouldn't put that in there yet. Maybe it needs more work, but they allowed it in. So that was good. And I was going to write my dissertation on this, but they nixed it, and I had to change my my thesis topic slightly from what I had it as. But it's an eschatological question, and my theory, not a theory, I'm sure it's true. I need to write a good article about it and use my my PhD dissertation and material and such, bring a lot of stuff into it. But the point is, it's about how Mary is what we could call a secondary eschatological end, because she's so tied to Jesus. You can't separate the two. It's the new Adam and the new Eve. They go together. It's always Jesus and Mary. There's no way to separate the two. You get one, you're going to get the other. Sorry, Protestants, you don't even know it, but that's the way it is. You get Jesus, you're going to get Mary too. That's the way it works. It's not like you can get Mary, or I'm sorry, you can get Jesus and Mary's not going to be involved somehow. that's not the way it works. And so that being the case, God is obviously, the ultimate end. But Mary is so much in the mix that you can't put her aside, and it's different than it is for anyone else, because she and Jesus are the new Adam and the new Eve. They can't be separated. She's the spiritual mother of humanity, so it makes sense that she would be, so to speak, a secondary end, because she's so related to God, who is our ultimate end. So that's something that I just need to find time to,
What do you mean
sit
end?
down and.
How do you mean end?
Yeah, what do you mean by secondary end?
Right, as an end. So we're created to be one with God and to enjoy him forever. We're in this world to know him, to love him, and to be happy with him forever. Right? He's the one that we all go back to. There's only one God, right? So that's where home is. Home is with God. All right. So that's the end we're looking for. That's literally the end, which is really the beginning in heaven, but it's, so to speak, the end is what we're aiming for. Like in Greek, they call it a telos. Like that's what we're doing, is trying to get to heaven. Heaven is where God is. It's being in God. All right. Participating in the life of the Holy Trinity, which we do through the Son, which happens via baptism. So you're actually participating in his divine life. So that's the ultimate end, right? But then you have Mary in the mix, and you just can't get away from the fact that she's your spiritual mother. It's just a fact. She's the new Adam. The new Eve with the new Adam. So if you get God, she's the daughter of the Father in a way that no one else is. The mother of the Son and the spouse of the Holy Spirit. That spousal union started at the Annunciation. That's what the church says. All right. So there's just no way to get to God and be like, well, Mary's not going to be part of it. For you and I, that's, we don't know until we get there. God willing, we're all going to be there. But Mary is a definite. Like that could never change. There's no way that wasn't going to happen. That was always part of the plan, is that there would be Mary, she'd be the mother of God, and you can't separate her and her son, obviously. So you can't get one without the other. You can't be with God and Mary wouldn't be there. That's just not possible in any situation. It couldn't happen. With us, you could conceivably say, well, what if we end up in hell? But you can't say that about Mary. That's part of the heavenly experience because of her tie to the incarnation. There's just no way around that.
Okay, so Robert's finally making some clearer comments.
Okay.
So Keith runs into, so he has said some other things, but I think he's responding now just to what you just said. Keith runs into trouble here with no created versus uncreated grace distinction. Jesus is eternal while Mary is created but being deified. I think so you need the distinction between created and uncreated grace, and the difference between her as creature and the creator.
Yeah. Oh, well, she's definitely a human creature. There's no doubt about that. She remains a human person, but she's immaculately conceived. And unlike Eve, she's also full of grace. And there's a lot more to it than that we don't have time to get into. It'd be too complicated, but definitely unlike Eve. As for grace, I mean, what the way the church defines sanctifying grace, for example, is that it is a created supernatural substance that enables us to participate in divine life. So I'm not sure how he's taking that, but I think what he's saying, is that you do have to make a distinction. What is Mary? She's a human person. That she's not a divine person. If that's what she's a human person who God is the source of all the grace, but he gives it all to her as the mediatrix of all grace. So she mediates all grace. That's the way God wanted to do it, and that's the way it happens. So I'm not sure if that answers his question or not.
Well, now he says it's an essence energy distinction that is required to see them apart.
Well, yeah, I think he's talking about when you're describing Mary being with God permanently, that he might be hearing eternally. I mean, that's not what you're saying, because you can't say that.
No. That's not what I mean. No, Mary remains a human person. She has a beginning. God does not have a beginning. Mary is not eternal. What I mean is because of that union with the incarnation, with God assuming human nature from her being the mother of God, and the spouse of the Holy Spirit, there's no way to disconnect them. With us, we could conceivably say something could go wrong along the way. But because of Mary's union with her son, which is a created thing, this union. It didn't have to be that way. It's not like part of God or anything. The essence of God is a Holy Trinity, Father, Son, Holy Spirit. She's not in that mix. As God is a Holy Trinity. But she is in union with God in such a way because of that, because of the incarnation, that and her union with the Holy Spirit. There's just no way that you can avoid her being part of getting to God. It just can't happen. It seems very simple to me. I'm not sure how much better I can explain that.
I don't think that, well, I think the title mediatrix was just rejected.
No.
Pope Leo, I think.
You just opened up a can of worms with that one.
Okay,
no.
Well, I didn't bring it up. You did.
No, but I'm thinking. So that it's talking with you about this. Whenever the only way I can make sense of theology is to translate into this is like mathematics.
That makes sense to me.
Well, no, I mean it's mathematics because it's making proofs out of premises and trying to understand the entailments that go with those premises. But then I think for those who don't think theologically, just as those who don't think mathematically, you get to a massive so what. How does understanding this relationship and then it's sort of like I'm glad we pushed you here because it's a very interesting tension with what you were saying about personal relationships with her, because now we have the her relationship with the Trinity and that this interiority of their relationship. One that and you also made the caveat saying, but we may not, if we mess up, we're not going to be part of that. So don't get too excited about how cool this sounds.
So to speak, yeah.
Right? I mean, it's sort of it's kind of
happen.
Yeah.
Right. I know.
Well,
now you've just broken everybody's heart. It's like she loves us and sees us personally, but her relationship with God is, see here, I can do Protestant if you really push me. Her relationship with God is so special and unique and different, and we're gonna get like thrown out, basically just give up. And I think that is what Protestants will feel, and that's why they get mad.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, but okay, so I want that relationship with God, and you're describing, and this I found interesting. To tie this into just another sort of thought, you're looking at the way men relate with Mary and the way women relate with Mary, and you premise that women look to Mary if we love her and think she's the kind of woman I could be, and I do not think that at all. She's like the last one that I could ever in my life be because I'm dirt. Right.
Same. And I think that's what a lot of Protestants think too.
Yeah.
They don't want to think of Mary in these terms because that means they really have to step up their game and they can't hope to possibly meet it because they don't understand that she is special and she is unique. And I do want to say, I do think you can pray to Jesus, never once pray to Mary, still get to God. Why would you ever want to? She's my mom. She helps me get there, through prayer. I wouldn't avoid that. But I don't think it's not a Catholic doctrine that says you have to pray the rosary. The rosary is a fantastic practice, but you don't have to do that. But why would you deny yourself that amazing tool? It really is an amazing tool that was given.
It's incredibly powerful. I mean, the saints are like Saint Louis de Montfort, very clear about that. The rosary is a very strong sign that you're on the path and you're probably going to end up in heaven. Like there's a moral certainty of it. That says something about
all of my Protestant depths are it's so mad.
No, wait, I should make another.
So Robert just explained he's talking from an Orthodox perspective. So his questions are Orthodox framing.
And it's because of the effects that it has.
What I find this interesting, it's like that I've never felt more Protestant. That Mary, thinking about Mary triggers a lot of these big denominational, right? The Orthodox, the Catholic, and the Protestant fracture over her more than over anything else. I mean, the Pope maybe, but the sort of why. I mean, and you could say, other Islam fractures over Christ. So there you go, right?
Yeah.
We're really convinced he's God, and they're not so much. So these theological questions really do matter, but it's interesting. It's like the what about why Mary matters is something that I've defaulted to. I understand her as the liturgical place, and that's concretely what she is throughout the Middle Ages. The way you're talking about her is not something that they're worrying about in the Middle Ages. It's simply not.
Right.
They're much more in the Orthodox frame of things, that they have the Orthodox feasts. They're using the texts that the Orthodox use. They're translating the Akathistos, so they know that in Latin. I mean, the medieval Marian devotion is much more recognizable to the Orthodox, I suspect. And
but you do have the like, for example, the miracle plays of the Middle Ages. Like in England, these were all over the place. Mary was like the star of the day. I mean, they were largely about Mary and miracles she worked and her son. And
no,
that was
I don't know
huge
which
thing.
plays you're thinking of, because like the York Cycle plays, which I've read from my classes, they're basically the story, right? It's from creation to redemption, and Mary has a role in it. I mean, like there's some plays that focus on her, but the plays themselves go through it's like it's creation, some Old Testament events, and then the Gospels.
I'm thinking of Oberammergau being probably the most,
it was the
one of
Passion.
the most famous ones.
It's the Passion.
It's the Passion
plays. I don't know about. You're gonna have to tell me. I don't know about plays of the miracles. And maybe Theophilus, Theophilus play. I think there is a Theophilus play. I'm
not an expert in this. I only know glancingly that from other people who do know more about this, that various miracle plays, Mary was the one who was the main focus.
Yeah, but it's still not in the way that you're talking about her. Your framing is a much more modern.
No, I didn't mean it that way. I just meant that she was a focus. In that sense, I didn't mean in the same way that I'm expressing.
No, and that's why I'm sort of trying to, as my medievalist, sort of confusion, because I don't do theology, which I told you at the beginning. And I think this becomes a layer of difficulty for, and I'm not quite sure who, in my own framing of things, that when you're talking about her, and I understand what you're describing, it's like she's part of the mystery that you don't get away from. I'm perfectly fine with that. But the sort of layering of reality and proof, and how all of that stuff that you said, I think some people might hear it and think, well, but if I don't believe all of that, am I damned?
Yeah, I couldn't say. I mean, if you're a Catholic and you're denying church teaching, then I'd say you've got problems. I mean,
but none of what you said is in church teaching. It's
no.
It's not in the dogma of the Assumption. It's not in the dogma.
No, we haven't gotten to any doctrine. I mean,
right.
We haven't really gotten to much into a doctrine, or this is more devotion than anything. Is what we're talking about, and prayer, and we haven't really gotten to doctrines and dogmas for the most, except mediatrix, which is a doctrine. You can't just that can't be dismissed. But mostly we haven't been talking about that. That's a So these kind of things. Do you have to believe in Marian apparitions?
I actually got you to talk about your theological stuff, and I'm glad I did, because it's powerful, and that is, I think, when people will hear. I think if we've been in our internet life, ongoing not debates with people about the Trinity who have similar. I mean, like, never mind Mary, right? It's like people there are people in the world that don't even believe in the Trinity, believe it or not.
I believe
because I think if they can't explain it, then it must not be true,
right?
And so I don't have to think about it anymore, because it does take humility to say, I'm not going to get this, but I do understand that God is he's omniscient. I get that. Can I explain it? No, my tiny little pea brain can't explain anything. But I don't have to explain it. I can recognize it.
Right.
That's the difference.
I mean, these are all tricky things. I mean, these are all divine things we're talking about in realities, and some of it's doctrine, some of it's more just devotion. And you can take it or leave it, like with apparitions, or you can still get to heaven not believing that, or not praying the rosary necessarily. I mean, it's not like you have to get to heaven, but so I don't mean anything like that. But my train just derailed too. I was going to say something else.
Okay.
I totally
Well,
lost
no,
it. But
the thing is, I think that it's in my mathematics analogy is quite serious, right? Because there's ways in which people at very high level of math talk about things that then you just your mind boggles and you're just like, how is this
that's what.
true, right? In what
Mhm.
what sense is this true? And you realize that they've gone from a construction through various steps where it is true, it's truer than anything else of truth, right? It's like it's true beyond true of like I experienced this or I tested this in engineering terms, or so it's like it's like theology I recognize has that mathematical quality to it. But at that point you are in the realm of um I don't I it well I don't yeah you sort of stumble I've stumbled.
Yeah.
See what happens when you talk about Mary.
It's good. You get to the hard stuff. Wisdom.
This
Right?
fiery
We end
stuff
up we
comes
end up
up.
we end up with wisdom. It's excellent, right?
True.
Well, and
True.
that I mean, it's like thinking about her forces you to have to think through the Trinity, which is in my my baby theology versions of things like I don't know Hildegard. It's clear that there's certain sort of things that Trinitarian questions that only come up when you recognize Mary's role in the mystery. And and so she is yet again showing you problems about your understanding of God, which is always going to be inadequate. So that's okay.
Well, yeah, exactly. And the thing that I think thought about Mary does immediately is make you recognize that you just can't understand everything.
Yeah.
Right. It's really it's an exercise in humility.
Oh, it is. I mean, it's a world of mystery, and I mean, I'm just explaining what the stuff I can get. I mean, you can be an expert in theology, be the most brilliant person, but you're still not going to get to all the answers. It's just not possible.
Okay.
Even in heaven, we're not going to comprehend everything because God is incomprehensible. I mean, which would be good. It'd be boring if we were like, oh yeah, I get it. I totally understand God now.
That's the thing.
It's not what we want. The human person is made for mystery. So
yeah, he's contemplatable. He's not comprehensible. Right? You can contemplate him, but you can't completely comprehend him.
Yeah, yeah.
I said Robert's saying but we are discovering math, not making it up. See, this is I think that the theologians like Keith, it's like you say it's true. I feel this, I know this is true. It is true. I'm going to prove to you it's true. And that's again the mathematics that I'm aware of goes there, right? And you're just like to this point of saying, okay, but what does that mean? That it's true. And I don't think you're making it up. I think you're discovering it. I think you're taking appropriate steps, right, to make the proof.
Right. I mean,
but then it gets you to a sort of terrifying place.
Oh, right.
A terrifying place.
All of this is undergirded by a lot of theology. And I mean, this, I have a whole year course just on this, on putting all these things together and that's a small drop in the ocean. I mean, so we're talking about really deep things that I prepare my students for weeks and then start getting, building on it. So they have all the fundamentals, but we're just not starting with that. So I'm trying to explain things from a certain level or a certain point without, I have to go back and set up the foundation, which is it's tricky to do. If people are asking questions, they're not starting with the foundation.
So that's curious. Where do you start? Then where do you start? How do you step them through to the point where what you explained to us?
Yeah, I mean, for one thing, the students, it depends on your students, I guess. My students, again, come from solid Catholic families. So they already have basic catechesis. They know basic theology, very basic things. And so I don't have to worry about setting that up. And then we just go from there into, I'm trying to put my Mariology course together. We go through scripture and then Marian dogmas, various doctrines, teachings of the saints. I mean, it's a lot of stuff that builds as it goes. So it starts with scripture, church teaching, sacred tradition, and it builds up. Then we don't get to devotion to Mary until like the end of the course, basically, because that is based on everything else. And plus, these are, like I said, divine mysteries. So it's, it can be tough to get to.
Who would you say has
Yeah,
been
explain
the
that.
theologian who are the theologians that you're most in conversation with?
That's a good question. Definitely Saint Alfonso Liguori is he's one of the best ones as far as major works go.
Mhm.
The Glories of Mary.
But he
I mean, I have
doesn't say anything
yeah.
near what you just said about.
Right. Oh no, there's a lot of others. You've got Saint Louis de Montfort, Saint Maximin Kolbe. I'd have to go through all my books. It's a lot of books, and I can't see the titles all from here. I don't have them all memorized. Trying to think of what I go over.
Well, because what
in
you
class.
described was very
Yeah.
philosophical as well, right? Did you say?
A lot of philosophy, yeah. Yeah, there's philosophical stuff that goes in with this too. I mean, trying to sort through things, I guess. Yeah.
I mean, the people I've
Yeah,
read
that's part of
that
it.
are getting to where you are. I like the way, for example, Adrian Speyer describes the relationship of the Trinity in prayer, which is very
Right.
beautiful.
Right.
And
She's really good. Some
she's
good stuff.
and I've read. I confess to have attempted to read von Balthasar and and not gotten very far, right? In his discussion of beauty, which I found interesting, but not. I didn't have the like. I don't know where they're coming from, so I don't know who they're in conversation with to get from what I know. I mean, I've read Alphonsus Liguori, I've read Louis de Montfort. There's still a leap between and I've read all of Mary of Agreda, right? So I know what happens in the
Yeah,
17th
very good.
century.
Right.
How do you get from the 17th
Yeah.
century to what you're just talking about?
Right. Well, so I mean, it's a lot of authors from the 1800s, early 1900s,
Okay.
and up to the present time. It's a lot of books. I'm just trying to remember the names.
Well, your main
They're all
guys,
behind me. I've got them here.
they've
It's
got
just
to be the main guys. Like, so the Protestants have to deal with Schleiermacher and his, feelings of absolute dependence. So that you end up through the
yeah,
19th century with a psychologizing of theology that you can't prove it anymore by reason, and you're going to be sort of romantically inclined to prove it by way of, like your paintings in your book, right? The feelings that you
right.
have in relationship to God, that's what is our proof, right? And that the enthusiastic evangelical Protestants default into that sense of Schleiermachian absolute dependence. But that's unsatisfying, right? Because it's like, Freud mocks it when he says it's that oceanic feeling. Well, if I've never had that oceanic feeling, does that mean, there's no God, right? Is the feeling the proof?
Right.
And we know that's not the case.
No. Right.
So now what
Mocking though it may have been, it was valid, right?
it
So
is
what do you do
valid.
if you,
So
right?
so
if
you
it's
get to
all
this
emotion.
point of where
You can't go by emotions now. I mean,
in, and this I think it's I hope it's a fair question. Where in modern Catholic theology is all of this grounded, right? Where does it actually have like solid foundations, as opposed to the Protestant, lack of foundations, which have, I mean, I'm not a theologian, but I'm aware of all of these things as a historian. And Bultmann, of course, saying, "Oh, just throw out all the mythology, and then we'll get the real stuff." And you're like, "Wait a minute, that doesn't work either."
no.
So where are we
Doesn't work, yeah.
grounded? Where is our ground as Catholics?
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's so much part of me. I'm trying to sort it all out. I mean, it's a combination of things. It's a combination of things. Basic theology, philosophy, tons of books about you name it. I don't even know where to start. All kinds of spiritual theology.
Robert's now giving you snaps because now I'm giving you a hard time. He says it's good.
Yeah,
It's good of
you
Keith.
are. I mean,
It's good of Keith to
I'm
take the
looking at
heat
all my
tonight.
books,
Yeah, you
Yeah,
can't.
it
Like,
is.
you don't come in to
It's,
talk about Mary and end up without an actual
I guess
challenge.
not. I mean, I've got several bookshelves that you can't even see. They're all
I
around
believe
my
you around the
library
books. I'm
here,
trying to get you to
and
tell me names.
I'm trying to give you names. I just don't. I just can't get them out of my head. I have to go look around.
Actually, that's a fair question. It's like, how do I know what I know? I look at my books, but I have to look at my books to remind myself of what I know. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes me feel, honestly, it's humbling. I feel like an idiot. I'm like, I've looked at all these books, I've read all these books, and here I am trying to remember what the
I
name of
think
the author are and the name
if
of the
you want to
book.
feel better, of all the books the two of you have just mentioned over the past half hour, I think I've read 2 of them, and it was maybe 20 years ago.
Okay.
I just did a flex on him because I was frustrated, right? It's like this is no, and the thing is, it is frustrating. It's frustrating to me as a historian. I'm, an intellectual historian.
Yeah.
I'm not a theologian, and I'm desperate. I'm actually honestly trying to get a grip on it because
Yeah.
it's the thing that I can't do, right? And I say that it's like is as with mathematics, there's and so Kim and I've been writing poetry all these years, right? We're getting to the point where we can like actually maybe rhyme stuff really coolly. There's a practice to it that what I know from medieval, Mariology and devotion to Mary is you have to be able to think figurally. You have to be able to think in these kind of, resonances and images and cross references and so forth. And I'm good at that now, I hope, right? But it's very concrete. And the scriptures are very concrete in those terms, right? They talk about God in these very concrete metaphors, and we've been practicing with those in our poetry. But modern theology doesn't do that, and I get lost. I just honestly get lost, and I'm trying to figure out where I got lost.
Yeah. I mean, I can send you a very long list of books if you want. I can do that. I don't want to get up right now and walk around on camera getting all my books out.
Right. No, but I'm just trying to get you to name your own heroes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, that's a good question. Pick three.
Right.
I mean,
who are your heroes? Sorry.
Father Stefano Manelli is
Okay.
really has amazing work. He's probably in his late 80s by now. Father Peter Fellner, he died recently. Great,
I know his stuff. Yeah, he's the Franciscan.
Yeah, right. Yeah, Franciscans of the Immaculate. Right. I'm trying to think of new ones. And I mean, there's a lot of new ones. Scott Hahn, Brant Petrie. There's
I've met Scott.
Oh gosh,
yeah, Scott's really good. Scott's another former Presbyterian, so he
right. Yeah,
he makes sense to me.
Yeah. I mean, and the ones I'm having trouble remembering are the ones from the 1800s and earlier 1900s.
Okay.
It's just because it's just so many books I've read. I just can't keep them all. So
the types of books that you've read from the early 19th century, were they devotional books like de Montfort's, or were they speculative theology?
No, the ones I'm thinking of, it's all solid theology. It's not really it's not speculative. It's based on good theology. It stems from good theology, and it's good theology in itself. It's so the spiritual stuff has to be based on the doctrinal stuff, church teaching, good theology. That's what it's based on. And I mean, even the doctrines and the theology, all of that is really basically love letters. I mean, you have to, I think, look at it kind of that way. It's God telling us about himself and about what he's done for us and what he's doing for us and how he does those things. These are not just dry, like academic things. This is what God is all about. This is who he is and what he's been doing. That's what theology is. And so you can't have just a spirituality that's not based on that. It's completely tied to it. And so, all the Rosary book is based on all these things that, form this foundational material. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of theological work.
I think when you were describing that the Rosary is very personal, it's like people say you have to have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. Absolutely. Yeah. But you can also have a personal relationship with his mother through these prayers, so that she becomes your prayer partner. But then that becomes very, very personal and theologically grounded or not, when you're trying to discuss what is essentially personal to you, to other people.
Yeah.
That's got to make it more difficult, I think.
It does make it, because you're talking about experiences that are based on, what we know is true, but it's your personal experience of it. And that's hard that's kind of hard to, if someone hasn't had that experience, how do you relate?
Even if they had, theirs would be unique.
Even then, it's unique. Yeah. Yeah. I had this weird experience once. We were at our church hall. Our kids were at CCD, and that's where everyone gets together for donuts and such for about an hour and a half. And I don't remember how this came up. I think I had been pondering something about how, I don't remember what it was. All I know is this. The end result was I was sitting there drinking some coffee, and I was watching people just walk by in the church hall. And it was one of those things that just occurred to me, like this blazing light. Again, it's like, it's like someone pulls back a curtain of reality and you had no idea that it was there. And you're like, I didn't know that. That's really cool. It was just this sudden insight of just how absolutely unique everyone is. So much so that even though you see their lives and you're like, I really would like to be that person. Like their relationship with Mary is really good and they make lots of money and they do all these, like, just imagine all these good things. And it just struck me very powerfully. This couldn't have been coming from me because it came out of left field, that everyone is so completely unique. You would not in any way, shape, or form want to be someone else. You would not want what they have. However good it looks, you wouldn't want it. You only want what you have. It was a really striking thing. And this was a few years ago, and it really has stayed with me. So yeah, I mean, there is a uniqueness to it that's absolutely a marvelous, wonderful thing. I mean, no one's going to have your relationship with Mary, your relationship with Jesus. It's very particular to you, and a beautiful thing. And it's a kind of beauty that no one else is going to have. So, and there are levels of that. That's why, I mean, you can't say like, well, Mary's at the top and I'll never be that. Well, no, I mean, of course, there's always going to be someone who's better than you. And except for Mary, no one's better than her. St. Joseph comes as close as you could. But the fact is, we're all just so completely unique that you really, whatever level you're at, you wouldn't want to be somewhere else. Because it's what God made you to be. It's who you are. So you really have to deny your own identity, and it would be an act of really of self-hatred to say, I really want to be someone else instead. It's so all this uniqueness, that's what St. Therese talks about too, like how there's all these different kinds of flowers. If we're all roses, if we're all Mary, where's the variety in that? I mean, that doesn't, and also people have different levels of putting their will into things, of consent to God's will in their lives. I mean, it's all radically unique. I mean, everyone's level is some way different, right? There's going to be people above you, people below you.
So see,
You
this
could be
is
holier
what I was
yeah.
is what I was reacting to in the way in your book you're wrestling with how, and this will be one of those things that people wrestle with in terms of being devoted to Mary, because either they're jealous, right, of her relationship with God, or I mean, this is what Marina Warner, like the woman that I ended up spending my life trying to challenge, said that she's an impossible model and she's better dispensed with. Right. It's like and Warner had grown up Catholic. And so she was just saying, we grew up wanting, dressing ourselves in Marian blue and, giving crowns to her statues and things like that. And Warner's Alone of All Her Sex is still cited in footnotes as like, when people, need a sort of survey of Marian history, they'll cite Warner. There's a few others that have come up since then, but it's still a default reference for people, which is an interesting one, because the default reference is, this is an image that had this richness and all of these different aspects, and it was culturally significant for thousands of years, but it's better we get rid of it, right? So the thing that I was responding to in the way you're sort of imagining women talking about her is saying, she's like me. She is how to be a woman. Mary's the only true and total likeness of woman for which I can strive. And the thing is, I am not jealous of her. I am desperate to serve her, which I think is a different.
She is.
Right. I'm just bad at it. But I don't see her as someone, and this I think it's a problem for women, because they're always wanting to be queen, right? They want to put themselves in the queen position, and they want to be the one that's at the center of the chorus with, that they're the Marilyn Monroe character that gets the chorus of other women. Well, actually, Marilyn Monroe's characters get men, but that you are somehow the center character of the story, as opposed to her handmaiden, which is what I describe myself to online, because I'd say I'm dirt. It's like, I'm not her, right? I am whatever I am. I'm me, and I seem doomed to be me, and I'm not the queen. I'm whatever kind of warrior person that like Eowyn to Arwen kind of problem. I'm not her, but I don't want to be either.
Right.
And I don't see her as in any way like me in those terms, because she's absolutely beautiful. She's absolutely gracious. She's absolutely powerful and sweet and all of these things. I can't be that, right? It's like
No, of course.
it's this
But
but this is a huge problem in our current idol obsessed world, right? You see your idol and you want to be like your idol, and so you'll dress like her and behave like her. And what's nice about being Catholic now is I do see, go to mass and I see younger people, and the women are all very beautiful and they all do, have a Marian quality to them. One, I don't feel like I'll ever get that because I guess I just grew Presbyterian. But on the other hand, I'm like, I don't want to be her. And what you're saying right now about, we're all our particular relationship with God, that makes sense to me. That each of us is in relationship with him and therefore with her as well, completely uniquely from anybody else. And Anselm, I've written on Anselm of Canterbury's Prayers to the Saints, and he had that same insight that each of the saints is in a different relationship with God.
Yeah.
So you said, why do you need so many saints? Well, because everyone's different.
Yeah.
Absolutely, every soul is in a different relationship. So I don't look at her and say she's like me. It's like she's like the guy.
No, that's not what I
not.
meant, really. Yeah, I mean, what I meant is it's the same thing for men. I mean, you see Jesus, or you could say you see Saint Joseph, and I want to be like them. I don't want to be them, for crying out loud.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, they have certain, or you could pick even people I know who are on Earth right now. People who have certain manly, gentlemanly qualities that I would like to have in my own unique way. I don't mean I want to be them. I don't mean people should want to be Mary. That's insane, and no one, you couldn't be. Lots of reasons. Not just because she's the most humble person there is and the most perfect one there is and immaculate. I don't even mean that. I just mean that you're you. And so, I mean, take the good, to look for the good things. She's the perfect example, but to see that perfection, her virtues, and how do I live those virtues in my unique life? That's what I'm talking about. And it's the same thing for men. I mean, I can also look at Mary and say, well, how do you, because in a lot of ways, this will come up sometimes, like, for as much time as I spend with you, I don't really see. I want to see more change. Like, I want to be a little more like you in terms of your gentleness and your patience and all that. But I'm a feisty person, and so the way
she punched the devil. Come on,
what's that?
She punches the devil. She's a bit feisty.
Yeah, I mean,
I love those medieval images of her like beating him with a club, and she's just really ungenteel.
Those are great.
As ungenteel as you could imagine in these portraits.
Yeah, I mean, that's what a good mother would do, though, right? I mean,
exactly. Yeah. Like everybody who is a mother looks at it and goes, yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. But I mean, you can't be her or try to approximate. You're supposed to look at her and see in what ways and what virtues does she have? What is she? In what way can I be? How does that part of my life? And it's like that for all of us, with Jesus, with Mary, you look at the saints that you're close to. I mean, even your guardian angel, like, they're really patient with us. I mean, how can I be patient with other people like that? I don't want to be my guardian angel, but I'd like to be patient with others like he is with me. But it would be in my own unique way. And if you don't want to lose that, because then you're losing yourself. That's not at all what my point was. I hope that's clear enough.
God didn't make a bunch of clones, right?
No. And so that's what I was going to say. How St. Teresa said we're all different kinds of flowers, and some of them are little violets, which are really like as tall as grass. But if they weren't there, what would the flowers be to look at when you look down? She said. If everything was roses, where would be the lilacs and the lilies and the buttercups, all these various sized and various kinds of flowers. So it would be ridiculous if we were all Mary's level or all the level of Saint Joseph. There's a reason we're at the levels we are, and because we're all unique. It's just that simple. So there's really nothing to be jealous of. I mean,
right, and she's the first one saved, right? Christ saves her first and resurrects her first.
Right.
We shall follow if we follow Christ.
Right.
That's the example.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. But in our own unique way. So, I mean, heaven would just be so boring if it were all the same. That would just be rotten. And that was one of the devil's things too. The devil fell and all the angels that did fall. It was a perfect act of self-hatred.
Right.
They hated what God made them. They didn't want to do it because they wanted what they wanted. And it wasn't just hatred of God. It was that perfect hatred of themselves as well. It's absolutely tragic. But that's what they chose, and that's what they've got. I
think tradition also is that they rebelled because they despised the idea that God was going to be born through a woman.
Right, and that was also and they would serve her, and they would also serve us. But that's an act of perfect self-hatred because they're hating what God made them to be.
Right. They're hating what God made, which
hated what God wanted to do,
yeah.
hated themselves because they didn't want to be part of it. So yeah. So you don't want to you don't be hating yourself or trying to. I mean, you're uniquely you in a way that no one else can be. If you're lost, it's an absolute loss. God can't make another one of you. It's just not possible, even for God to do. He couldn't do that. So when someone ends up in hell, I mean, speaking of Mary's sorrows, that's what she mentions in some of her apparitions. It's an absolute heartbreak because how that works in heaven, people speculate on how that works.
How it works.
You'll see how will it be to see people that you love that are in hell, but you'll see how it's a perfect act of justice and etc. But it's hard to get your head around that now, like exactly how that'll work. My point is that for Jesus and Mary, this is a loss that is hard really for us. We can imagine it with our friends or family if you have kids, like how absolutely awful that would be and how that would work in heaven. But for Jesus and Mary, it's even worse, really, far beyond even our experience of what sorrow could be.
It's why Satan attacks us and tries to drag us to hell, because it's the only way he can hurt Christ.
Exactly.
Only
That's how we can hurt God.
Who God loves.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
So ironically, the devil tries to get us to hurt ourselves, and that very fact proves God loves us.
Right. Yeah. That's a very good point.
Yeah.
That's a good insight. Yeah. Absolutely.
I can't think of any better place to get to right now. Is there anything you definitely want us to know from our meditations?
That's a good question. I knew we were going to ask something like that, probably. And I still don't know.
You should have known I was going to ask about your bibliography, but sorry. But
that was kind of in the back of my mind, and then it just kind of went out of my mind.
I don't
know why.
No, the things that you definitely want us to know.
What do I definitely want you to know?
Yeah.
See, I feel odd getting to what I would normally say now because of everything that we just talked about how
well, then say what
trying to show
say what you would usually say. That's fine.
The thing is that I'll just go back to the beginning, I guess, since that's where I started from. That hell is a real place. It's a real thing. There's simply no doubt about this. And not that everyone believes it, but it's there. It's a fact. The saints are all really clear from the medieval period onwards, and even before that. Devotion to Our Lady is something that you really want in your life. She's able to get demons out of your life. Being close to her keeps them away, which my book explains pretty clearly. She's the mediatrix of all grace. It's just that simple. God didn't have to do it that way, but just the fact that Jesus himself comes to us through her tells us that everything comes through her. He's the source of all grace, and he comes through her. And she's a spiritual mother. So how does she nourish us? By grace. That's how it happens. We desperately need her. I mean, it's just a fact. And being close to her means that souls are going to be saved. The more people know about her, so whatever that you need to do about that, reading books, reading about theology, getting to know her better, praying to her, and the praying is a key thing. I mean, you've got to talk to her. It's not magic. It's not just a devotion like, she's not a statue. That's what I'm getting at. It's like a husband being devoted to his wife, or a wife being devoted to her husband, or a child being devoted to his parents. It's an intimate relationship. It's like what you said. There's a personal relationship with Jesus. Absolutely. You have to have that. But also with Mary too. She's the mother of Jesus, but also the mother of the entire Christ, all his body. That's us. And it goes back to what St. Alphonsus said. I mean, if you have if you're devoted to her, you're on a good path. You're on a good path. So bringing people to her is about the best thing that you can do. I'm trying to remember where that line is. I think it's Wisdom. I should have this memorized, but I'm trying to remember exactly what it is, where she says, oh, that's right. Those that explain me will have
life everlasting.
Life everlasting. that's precisely what we're talking about here. We're explaining Mary. You do that to other people, you're not only going to get yourself to heaven, you're going to get other people to heaven. And that's really what we want, is to not have people go to hell. And that's what was impressed upon me so much in 2013. I guess that was like something that I think that Mary must have wanted was, this is what's happening. Bring them to me, because that's how, they escape the devil. That's the main way it works. You're close to her. He's going to stay away. He's going to get clobbered. It's just that simple. So that's one of the best things in your life you can possibly do is get to know her yourself, teach other people about her. And I've seen that with my students. Like I said, I get several students a year or so will actually tell me that their life was really altered by taking that Mariology class, because they didn't know her that well before. They didn't understand her, but now they do, and their relationship with her is really strong. And for some reason, God has put me in that spot. I mean, you asked how I got there, actually, and that was actually my wife. I mean, I was out of work, and she asked Mary she was praying to her to find me a job that I'd be good at and that I would enjoy. And about just a little while later, Queen of Heaven Academy came up, and these places never have openings. And I mean, how I get in there is and it's Queen of Heaven Academy. I mean, really? Pretty obvious. And then I mentioned, I said,
Nice.
could I create a Mariology course? And they said yes. And so my second year there, we had this Mariology course going with. There's not many of those in the United States or around the world at a high school level.
Yeah.
That's even at a college level, even at seminary level, you don't really see much.
That's what I understood. That I gave a talk a few years, a decade or so ago at the Villanova conference, and on Mary, and the people there were explaining to me, it's like nobody has these classes, even in Catholic seminaries. And I'm like, really? I'm surprised about that. I thought that was central to
it should be.
understanding.
Yeah, even the Dominicans. There's a Dominican at our parish. It's a Dominican parish, and he was asking what I do and what I study, and I was telling him, and he said, it's kind of strange, but he said at our seminary, he said we only get, I don't remember what he said, half a year or 1 year of Mariology, and I'm like, he said he was really surprised, like, yeah, that's all we get. I'm like that seems impossible. You're Dominicans. You should have a lot of Mariology. I mean,
is that against the law?
And but the thing is, I mean, if people know what the saints, it's not just St. Alphonsus Liguori. I mean, you have St. Maximilian Kolbe and all these other saints talking about St. Louis de Montfort, about being close to Mary and what you get from that. And why on earth are people hardly talking about this? I don't hear much about it at masses. I don't hear much about it in classes. And it's just
because it's tradition. It's traditional, and they've been de-emphasizing that for the past 60, 70 years.
Oh yeah, honestly, it's a satanic attack. It's absolutely a satanic attack on souls and on the church. It's just
but they don't realize it. They think they're just being more open to the world.
Right.
And the world
no, I don't mean they know it.
And so they've gotten away from that.
Oh yeah, they don't even realize what they're not doing.
Right. But so which is good why you're teaching this then, because it needs to be taught.
It's got to be out there.
So people don't forget.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the thing. People got to start talking about this, teaching about it, and we need to hear it at homilies. But the only thing I hear at homilies, usually when Mary does come up, is this is going to sound bad, but it's the same stuff all the time. Okay, she's immaculately conceived, even though people don't really understand that very well, but it's like basic things. Like, okay, can we move past that and get just like deeper stuff about Mary in theology? Because people aren't that stupid. They can take it. You can get into deeper stuff and tell them more about her. So like, wow, that's fascinating. And then they want to know more about her. But if you're just like saying the same thing every time Mary comes up, that's not really doing a whole lot of good. You really got to get into this. And it's not happening very much. And that has to happen. The saints are all clear about this. It's some kind of demonic thing. That's like a slow burning thing. Like you said, like people have gotten this into their heads for the past several decades. And, in the 70s, they called it the decade without Mary, because there are some good things from them, but mostly
they screwed that up. I got my rosary in the 70s.
Yeah, well, there was some good stuff, like Father Manelli. Like I mentioned, he was writing some amazing things in the 70s, but that was
I had some very, very old nuns teaching me in 1979. So.
Yeah, there were still a few good ones around then, who would do that in the 70s. But I mean, largely though, as far as Mariology went, the 70s was like that's what they call it, a decade without Mary, because it wasn't a whole lot. And it's starting to come back now, but still not as much as it needs to. And from people you would expect would be talking about it aren't really talking about her very much, at least not in a deep way, and not as often as they should. Like I said, the saints make really clear why that's important, why they should be doing that. Hence the books I'm writing and all of that. So
thank you.
yeah.
Our Lady, I'm sure is grateful. This was amazing. Thank you so much, Keith. And I hope you don't mind that we pushed back, because we need, the thing is,
No,
I push back because people need to know properly. And
no,
if we don't practice pushing back, we don't have answers.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that I'm everything you're saying right now is so important, that we do need to test these mysteries and understand them and pray them, because it's everything.
Right.
So we made it. We made it through without, like, tech problems that we've had in the past. So hopefully,
that's pretty good.
sometimes we have had sort of wild sort of things interrupting and such like this.
Yeah.
Clearly,
I used to drop off quite a lot.
Clearly, we had better protection this time than maybe we have
Someone's
had in
watching
the
over it.
past. So, where's the best place for people to find your books? And I can put links for the book that we were talking about in the description. But any other place that you definitely want people to go to look for you?
That's a good question. We've been working on a website, my wife and I, and that's still not up and running yet.
Okay.
But the books, I mean, you can find them at Amazon, like everyone has Amazon nowadays.
Right.
Amazon and Root Books and Media is the publisher. They have it. Barnes and Noble. I mean, anywhere you want to find it. I have articles on Homiletic and Pastoral Review too that get into a lot more stuff. I think I have 5 articles on there, Marian articles on Homiletic and Pastoral Review. It's only online now, HPR.
Okay. Well, I'll definitely put the link to the Marian Dragons book, and everybody. Hopefully, thank you all for joining us, and now you get it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's the best, most deep discussion you're gonna have.
Right.
All right.
And Mary the Beloved goes into more theology too. That's more a Mariology course. So in case anyone wants that, that's there too. So
great. Thank you again, and Hail Mary.
You're welcome. Exactly. Hail Mary, indeed.
Good night.